I came back to Ridgeway during fall break, just for a few days. I told myself it'd be good to breathe, to reset, to see my parents. But the second I stepped off the plane, I felt that old weight settle in again. It's always like that. I think I'll feel better being home, but somehow it always ends up being harder. I'm a sophomore now, all the way out west, and honestly, I've gotten used to the distance. I've built my own life out there. Coming home just feels like stepping backward. My parents haven't changed, not even a little. They still treat me like I'm in high school, like if I stay out too long or close my door for too long, I must be up to something. And I hate how easily I slip back into that version of myself around them. Quiet, careful, watching every move I make. The thing that really gets under their skin is weed. They don't care that it's legal here now. They act like it's a gateway to prison or something. They'd lose their minds if they knew I smoked. But I don't do it to be edgy or rebellious or whatever they think. It's the only thing that keeps my brain from spiraling sometimes. Still, every time I'm home, I have to sneak around like I'm 15 again, checking if windows are open, watching where the wind's blowing, hiding stuff in zipped-up pouches buried under old clothes in my duffel. It's pathetic, really, but I do it anyway, because no matter how grown up I feel at school, back here, I'm still the kid under their roof, and I know better than to test the limits. I don't know why I look that way. I was halfway up the treehouse ladder, just trying to get up there before the cold set in, but something pulled my eyes toward the house, specifically toward the basement window, and I swear it was open. Just a crack, barely noticeable unless you were really looking. But it was enough. That window's always locked. Always. My dad's obsessive about it, like to the point where he'll circle the house twice before going to bed just to double check. He's even gone out in the rain before because he wasn't sure. He clicked it shut, so for it to be open, even a little, it felt off. But in the moment, I didn't let it get to me. I figured maybe they'd opened it earlier that day to air things out, maybe forgot about it. The weather was decent earlier. It wouldn't have been that weird. Still, something about it stuck. I kept glancing back as I climbed the rest of the way up, like I was waiting for something to move down there. But nothing did, and now I can't stop thinking about it. Like if I had just gone and checked it, or if I had mentioned it to someone, would anything have played out differently? Or was it already too late by then? It's stupid. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it really was just someone forgetting. But that window, God, it keeps showing up in my head, like it's trying to tell me something I missed. Being up there felt like the only place I could actually breathe. I forgot how much I missed that treehouse. It's barely held together these days. Some of the floorboards creak like they're one shift away from snapping, but it's still there, tucked up in the front yard like it's been waiting for me. My parents never tore it down. I don't know if that's sentimentality or just neglect, but I'm grateful either way. There's something about being up high, hidden in the trees. It gives you space, distance. I could see the roof of the house, the empty street beyond the yard, the faint glow of porch lights from neighbors too far away to matter. It was cold, that sharp kind of cold that stings a little, but makes everything feel clearer. My breath came out in little clouds, and for a second, I felt still, like I could just be. I lit up and leaned back against the wall, tried to let the quiet do its thing. Thought about school, about how it's weird that the place I grew up in feels like a memory now, like it's not mine anymore. I don't know when that changed. Maybe it never was mine to begin with. Maybe that's why I always end up here when I come back. Not the living room, not my old bedroom, here. I remember thinking I'd timed it just right. My parents were at some dinner thing. I had hours, just enough time to fade out for a bit, watch the sunset finish, and climb down like nothing happened. I really believed that. I really thought I was in the clear. I wasn't. I was just about to pack up when it happened. It was subtle, just a shift in the light, a glow from one of the windows downstairs. But I swear, in that moment, everything inside me paused, like my brain had to reboot just to register what I was seeing. That light wasn't on before. I know it wasn't. I'd been watching the house on and off the entire time, just part of the rhythm of being up there. It was dark, empty, still, and then it wasn't. At first I thought maybe the timing was off. that maybe my parents came back early, but that didn't track. Their car wasn't in the driveway. There was no sound, no door slamming, no headlights flashing across the yard, just that light, flicking on like someone had been in there the whole time. I kept staring, waiting for something to explain itself, but instead I saw them, figures, 3 of them, moving across the lawn like they knew every step. Heads down, fast but not rushed, like they'd done this before. And then the front door opened. A 4th person was already inside, letting them in. That's when it clicked. Too fast and too slow at the same time. I wasn't just seeing something strange. I was watching it happen, and I couldn't move. I just sat there, heart beating so hard I thought I might pass out. My hands weren't even mine anymore. My breath didn't feel real. I kept waiting for something to wake me up, or for one of them to look up and prove it was just a stupid misunderstanding. But it wasn't. It wasn't anything close to that. And I think some part of me already knew that. I don't even remember making the decision. One second I was just frozen there watching, and the next my phone was in my hand. The screen already lit up. I must have opened the dial pad on instinct because my brain was still locked up. I wasn't thinking. I was just reacting. My fingers were moving, but I wasn't in control of them. It felt like I was watching myself from outside my own body. I whispered what I could into the phone. I don't even know if it made sense. I said the address. I said there were people inside. I don't remember if I said how many. I know my voice was shaking. I know I was trying not to breathe too loudly. When I hung up, I felt this weird moment of relief, like maybe I'd done the right thing. Like maybe I'd just bought us time. Then I saw it, the faint glow from my screen, just a sliver of it. That tiny bit of light against the dark. I hadn't even thought about it. I didn't angle it down or cover it with my sleeve. It was stupid. I know that now, but in the moment it felt so small, like it couldn't possibly matter. But it did. The guy who'd been outside, the one pacing the yard, snapped his head toward me like he'd been waiting for a sign. Straight toward the treehouse. Not a glance, a look, focused, sharp, like he knew exactly what he was seeing. I dropped flat without thinking, pressed myself into the floorboards like I could disappear into them. But it was already too late. I didn't need to look again. I could feel it in every nerve in my body. He had seen me. It's hard to describe the sound. That creak, slow and deliberate, like the wood itself was warning me. I knew immediately it wasn't me shifting. It was heavier, steady. Someone was climbing. My brain took a few seconds to catch up, but my body was already reacting. I crawled backward, pressing myself against the far edge of the treehouse, trying to make myself smaller, like that would change anything. I remember saying something. I don't even know what, just throwing words into the air, hoping one of them would land hard enough to stop him. I think I yelled that the cops were coming. Maybe I said I wasn't alone. I don't know. None of it mattered. He didn't stop. I couldn't hear him breathing, couldn't see his face, but I knew he was getting closer. Every new creak came faster, angrier, like he didn't care anymore about being quiet. I didn't think. That part is what keeps messing with me. There wasn't a moment where I weighed options or made a choice. I just reached. My hand closed around the first thing nearby, a heavy glass grinder I had stashed from earlier, probably too dusty to even use properly now. It had weight. That's all I needed. I threw it with everything I had. I didn't even aim, just flung it out into the dark toward the sound of him. I heard it connect, a dull crack, then a sharp curse, and then a thud. He didn't scream, didn't stay, just scrambled up and ran. I heard him shouting to the others, fast, panicked words I couldn't catch. Footsteps, retreating. I couldn't even move, couldn't breathe right. My arms were numb, but my hands were shaking like I was still holding something. It wasn't brave, it wasn't smart, it just happened. And it was the only reason I'm still here. The cops got there faster than I expected. Maybe 3 minutes? Maybe more? I don't know anymore. Everything after that moment felt out of order, like I was remembering it in pieces that didn't fit together right. I climbed down somehow. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't even trust the ladder, and I think I slipped at one point. The cold air didn't help. I couldn't catch my breath. couldn't string together anything that sounded like a sentence. The officer was trying to ask me questions, but my mouth was moving slower than my brain, and even my brain wasn't working right. I remember pointing toward the house, saying something about how many there were. I couldn't even say what they looked like, just shadows and shapes. I kept saying I was the only one who was supposed to be there. I don't think that helped much. My parents pulled up not long after that. Their headlights hit the driveway just as I was trying to explain to the cops where the guys had run off to. I can still see my mom's face, mouth half open, frozen in some weird place between shock and fear. My dad didn't even say anything at first, just looked around like he couldn't believe it. The cops said it was probably planned, that whoever those people were, they had to know my parents were out. Some banquet or fundraiser, whatever it was. It had been public enough, but no one planned on me being there, and definitely not up in that treehouse. I've been back at school for a while now. Everyone acts like it's over, but it doesn't feel over. I see that guy climbing in my head more often than I'd like. I keep thinking about how close it was, and I hate that I'm so far away from home now. Not because I miss it, but because they're still there, and I'm not. I guess it really started with the treehouse. Evan was maybe 7 or 8 back then, full of that relentless kind of energy kids just seem to be born with. I used to joke that he had a motor built into his spine. Always running, always climbing, always asking questions that left me blinking like a deer in headlights. I was different then. More hands-on, still filled with that drive to do something. Projects around the house kept me grounded, gave me purpose. That's probably why I poured so much of myself into that treehouse. It wasn't one of those rickety platforms nailed together in a weekend. No, I built it like I build anything. With care, patience, and probably too much pride. 4 solid walls, a roof that held in the rain, even a staircase with a handrail. I wanted it to feel like a little extension of our home, a space Evan could call his own, but one I could still keep tabs on. It sits right up against the woods, tucked just far enough back to feel adventurous, but close enough that I could watch it from our bedroom window. That view was important to me. Still is. Dana, my wife, wasn't totally thrilled. She worried about the height, about Evan falling, about animals, about splinters, typical mom stuff. But after a while, even she couldn't deny how happy it made him. He'd spend hours up there. I remember thinking it was the best thing I'd ever made. At the time, it felt like a gift, a labor of love. I didn't know then how strange things would get. I didn't know that the place I thought would keep him safe would end up being the part I'd worry about the most. I don't remember the exact day things started to feel off. It wasn't one of those sudden, dramatic shifts, more like a slow creep, a shadow stretching a little farther each evening without you really noticing until it's all around you. Evan started spending more and more time up in the treehouse. At first, it didn't seem strange. He loved that thing, made sense that he'd want to be up there. But it got to a point where it wasn't just after school or on weekends. It was constant. He'd wake up early, eat just enough to get by, and disappear up there until we called him in. No toys, no books, not even a snack. Just him, sitting, watching. I figured it was a phase. Maybe he just liked the quiet, or maybe he needed space. Kids go through stuff, even if they don't have the words for it. But then he started talking about someone named Owen. At first, I brushed it off, figured it was just some imaginary friend thing. Kids do that. They invent people when they're bored or lonely. But Evan had never really been like that. He wasn't the kind of kid who played pretend with people who weren't there. And honestly, he was a little old for that sort of thing by then. Still, I told myself it was harmless. Just a name, just a phase. Dana had her own take. She didn't say much, but I could tell it bothered her more than she let on. She kept asking me if I thought he was okay. I said yeah, I wanted to believe it. But the more he mentioned Owen, the more it started to sound less like a game and more like a relationship. Like someone was really up there with him. It was a Thursday. I remember that because it had rained earlier that morning and the leaves were still sticking to the sidewalk. Evan came in through the back door, quiet like he always was after a long day up in that treehouse. I barely glanced at him until he walked past me, and that's when I saw it. His left eye was swollen, dark along the edge, like something had hit him hard, too hard to be nothing. At first, I told myself maybe he'd tripped or walked into a branch. It happens. But then I saw the way he carried himself, shoulders tense, eyes low. Not hurt like a kid who fell, hurt like someone trying to keep something from showing. It just sat wrong with me. I asked what happened, tried to keep it casual. Just a simple, "Hey bud, you okay? What happened there?" But the way he looked at me, it wasn't fear. It was something else. Like he wanted to tell me but didn't think I'd get it. Like it wasn't even worth trying. That hit harder than the bruise. He shrugged and mumbled something about falling. The most generic answer you can give, really. Dana thought maybe one of the neighborhood boys had gotten rough. She brought up Jameson from 2 houses down, said he'd been known to lash out. I didn't disagree, but the timeline didn't make sense. He hadn't even been out front in days. Not since he started spending every damn hour up there. And that bruise, it looked deliberate. Not an accident, not clumsy. I didn't say it out loud, but something about it felt targeted. I didn't know what to do with that feeling, so I did what most parents probably do when they don't want to face the worst. I let it go. I wasn't even planning on bringing it up. It just sort of came out. I'd stopped by the hardware store, needed new bolts for the attic hatch, nothing urgent, and I ended up talking with Ron, the older guy who's always behind the counter. He's the type who'll talk your ear off about weather patterns and the town's zoning board if you give him a minute. I must have said something offhanded about Evan and the treehouse. Probably something like, "Kid barely comes down from there these days," just filling the silence. But the second I mentioned it, something in his face changed. He didn't say anything right away, just kind of tilted his head like he was weighing whether to keep talking or not. Then he asked if the treehouse was the one at the edge of the woods. I said yeah, and that was when he brought it up. Casual, almost like it was nothing. He said people used to talk about a kid being seen in those woods years ago. Never lived on our street, never enrolled in the local school, just a kid, showed up sometimes. Then stopped. Nobody ever figured out who he was. Cops looked into it back then, but there was nothing to go on. No missing persons match, no ID, just an occasional sighting, mostly from kids who'd come home saying they played with someone out there. I laughed it off in the moment. Just one of those small town stories, right? But the whole drive home I couldn't stop replaying it. A kid with no name, seen near the woods, disappeared without a trace. I didn't want to make any connection, but I did. I still do. I'd been putting it off for weeks, maybe longer. Dana said I was overthinking it. Kids get bumps and bruises, kids make things up, but something in my gut just wouldn't let it go. I told myself I just needed to check it out, just to quiet the voice in my head that wouldn't shut up. So one afternoon when Evan was at school, I went out there. I hadn't been up in that treehouse since the day I finished it. Funny how something you built with your own hands can start to feel like it doesn't belong to you anymore. The stairs creaked more than I remembered. I stepped into the little room expecting dust, maybe some leaves blown in through the window slats. What I found instead, I still don't know what to make of it. There were socks, 6 pairs at least, tossed into corners or balled up near the door. None of them looked familiar. Same with the shoes, kid sizes mostly, but worn, scuffed in places that didn't make sense. Like they'd been out walking a long time. Some had mud caked on them. One pair had initials written on the inside, but they weren't Evan's. And then the wrappers. Not the kind of snacks we buy. Generic brands, off-market stuff. Some torn open, others folded like someone had been saving them. And utensils. Just 2, one plastic spoon, one metal fork, both crusted with something dry and brown at the tips. That's when I started to feel it. This heaviness in the chest, like I'd just walked into a room I wasn't supposed to be in. But the drawings, that's the part I can't shake. They were everywhere, scratched into the wooden walls in pencil, marker, even what looked like charcoal. A fox with its mouth too wide, a bear with human-looking eyes. And this spider thing, 8 legs, sure, but the face, it looked like someone trying to force a smile. I stared at it for a long time, trying to decide if it looked scared or happy or something else entirely. I still don't know, and I don't know who made them, because they weren't Evan's. I'd barely been sleeping by that point. My mind was running loops. Treehouse, Evan, the bruises, those damn drawings. Every creak of the floor or rustle outside would jolt me upright. That night, I was up again. Sometime past midnight. The house was still, just that quiet hum you only notice when everyone else is asleep. I don't even know why I looked out the window. Maybe I heard something. Maybe it was just instinct. But I looked out and I saw movement. At first, I thought it was Evan. My stomach dropped. I was halfway to furious, thinking he'd snuck out in the middle of the night. But the moment my eyes adjusted to the dark, I knew it wasn't him. There was someone on the stairs of the treehouse. A kid, but not Evan, not even close. He looked off, thin, too thin, clothes hanging off his frame, stained and shredded like they hadn't seen a washer in years. His hair looked wet even though it hadn't rained, and his arms, he moved them like they didn't quite belong to him. Not jerky exactly, but not right. I froze, just watching, and then he turned slightly, just enough for me to catch a glimpse of his face. Pale, hollow. I couldn't even tell if he saw me watching. I opened the back door, not quietly, and the second I stepped out, he darted. No hesitation, straight into the woods behind the house. I shouted, I don't even know what, but he didn't stop. I ran after him, maybe 30-40 yards in before I lost sight of him completely. Just trees and blackness. We called the police, told them everything. They came out with flashlights and dogs, swept the entire area. Nothing. No prints, no signs of someone running through, and no reports of missing kids that matched what I saw. They asked me a dozen different ways if I was sure I saw someone. I still am, but they didn't find a damn thing. The police didn't push too hard, but they did ask to speak with Evan. Just to hear it from him, they said. Make sure he was safe. I didn't think much would come of it. I figured he'd freeze up, maybe say a few words about a made-up friend and they'd be done with it. But he spoke, and what he said, I'm still not sure what to make of it. He told them Owen didn't have a house. He lived out there, in the woods. Not alone though, he said Owen stayed with others. Evan called them animals. Not like pets, not stuffed toys, just animals. But he gave them names. Bear, Vixen. I think there was one more, something strange, maybe the spider thing he'd drawn on the walls. I can't remember now, or maybe I don't want to. He told them Owen wanted him to leave with them, to stay out there in the woods, said he'd asked more than once. And when Evan refused, he said Owen got angry. He didn't cry while saying it, didn't even look scared. He just said it like it was a fact, like it had already happened and he'd moved past it. I can't stop thinking about that. About how casually he said it, about how serious he looked when he said Owen didn't like to be told. Dana's convinced it's something supernatural, some kind of spirit or energy tied to the land, but I can't go there. I can't let my mind stretch that far. Not yet. But the alternative, the idea that Evan met someone real out there, someone capable of whatever this was, that might be worse. That is worse. I just keep turning it over in my head. The bruises, the drawings, that boy I saw, and Evan's voice, flat and distant, saying Owen was mad because he wouldn't go with him. None of it adds up, and somehow, that makes it all feel even more real. I still remember how fast it all happened. One week I was walking home from school past boarded-up stores and broken sidewalks in our rundown Ohio neighborhood, and the next I was staring at a 4-car driveway and a house with more windows than I could count. Ridgeway Heights. It even sounded rich. My dad got some promotion, something corporate, vague. I never really understood what he did, but I remember the way my mom's voice cracked when she told me we were moving. Not sad, just stunned. It was like we'd skipped chapters in our own lives. There was no slow climb, no build-up, just a jump cut. New state, new zip code, new everything. The old place was cramped and smelled like old carpet, and our backyard had more weeds than grass. The new house had these wide halls that echoed when you walked, and a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a catalog. I didn't know what to do with all that space. My parents kept saying how good this would be for me, like they were trying to convince themselves. I didn't argue. I didn't have much to leave behind anyway. I wasn't exactly the tight circle of friends kind of kid. I mostly kept to myself, and that was never really a problem. Maybe that's what they meant by reset, somewhere to start fresh, become someone else. But even then, something about Ridgeway Heights felt off. Too quiet, too perfect, like it was hiding something beneath all the polished brick and trimmed hedges. And deep down I think I already knew this place wasn't going to be what they hoped. The treehouse became my spot without me even realizing it. It wasn't some big decision, I didn't declare it mine or anything. It just sort of happened over time. The backyard was unreal, like one of those over-filtered listings in real estate magazines. Perfect hedges, smooth stone paths, even a tiny koi pond that never seemed to get dirty. But the real draw was tucked away in the very back. You'd have to cut through a patch of trees to get there, which already made it feel a little hidden, a little secret. It was more than just a treehouse. I don't even know if that's the right word for it. It looked professionally built, something you'd see in a design show about spoiled rich kids, multi-level, with a real staircase, not just nailed planks. The kind of thing someone spent time and money on, then just left there. No one ever really talked about it, not even my parents. Like it came with the house and they didn't ask questions. When we first moved in, my cousins Ben and Tyler were around a lot. They were older, but not by much, and at first they thought the treehouse was cool too. We played tag, tried to spy on the neighbors, made dumb rules like kids always do, but after a few weeks they just stopped coming around. No big announcement, they just lost interest. Or maybe they didn't. I kept going back. Something about it felt like mine. It was always quiet up there, even when the rest of the neighborhood felt weirdly still. I liked the quiet back then. I liked being above everything, looking out from the trees like I was somewhere else entirely. I didn't think twice about why no one else wanted to be there anymore. I probably should have. It was just sitting there, folded neatly on the dusty floor of the upper level near the corner where the light barely reached in the afternoons. I almost didn't notice it at first. It looked old, but not like it had been there long. The paper was creased once down the middle, and the handwriting was weird. Not like a kid's messy scrawl, but also not quite adult. Neat, kind of careful, but shaky, like whoever wrote it was trying too hard. It said it was from someone calling themselves the Muffin Man. I remember staring at those words for a while, not even really processing them. The Muffin Man? It sounded dumb in a way that made sense for a joke, like something Ben or Tyler would come up with if they were bored and trying to be funny. I assumed that's what it was. Some weird prank, a way to get me talking again. There was a stack of blank paper in the corner that hadn't been there before. I couldn't tell if it had always been there and I just missed it, or if someone had put it there recently. Either way, it made playing along easy. I grabbed one of the old markers we kept up there and wrote back. Just a name. I think I laughed a little, thinking this would be a short game, maybe even a way to get them interested in the treehouse again. I didn't think twice. Why would I? It felt harmless, kind of exciting even. Something about it made the quiet less lonely. I never thought to ask how that note got there in the first place. That part didn't seem important yet. The notes kept showing up, like clockwork. Every day I went up there, there'd be a new one. Always folded the same way, always left in the same spot. It started to feel like this strange little ritual, almost comforting in a weird way. I'd climb up after school, peel back the fold, and find something waiting for me. The handwriting was always the same, that slightly off mix of careful and unsteady. It was weird, but not threatening. Not yet. The questions started out innocent, stuff that could have come from anyone. What's your favorite candy? Or if you could fly, where would you go? Dumb, childish stuff. But over time they shifted. Little by little they got specific, like too specific. Questions about my morning routine, what cereal I liked, what book I kept by my bed. At first I laughed it off, figured Ben or Tyler had somehow found out and were just trying to mess with me, maybe sneaking around the house or snooping through my stuff. But it didn't totally line up. Some of the stuff the notes asked about I hadn't told anyone. Stuff I wasn't even sure I'd said out loud before. Questions like what time do you usually go to sleep, or which side of the bed do you face when you fall asleep. One even asked what color my bed sheets were. Not exactly playground banter. I kept brushing it off, kept telling myself it was still a game, but there was this small, growing part of me that didn't believe that anymore. Like a splinter just under the skin, easy to ignore, until it starts to hurt. Something about the whole thing was off. I just wasn't ready to admit how off it really was. It was small, one of those little black plastic things that could have passed for a toy if you weren't looking too closely. I still can't explain what made me check behind that beam in the first place. I think I dropped something, maybe a pen or one of the markers rolled out of reach. Or maybe I was just messing around, fiddling with stuff like I always did when I was alone up there. Either way, I nudged the beam a bit and saw something tucked behind it, just barely. A dull little lens catching the light. It was pointed right at where I always sat. Same spot every time. Not just the general area, the exact spot, my corner, my place. I froze, like full body, no thoughts, kind of still. It felt like my chest was collapsing into itself. I kept blinking, hoping I was wrong, that it was something else. But the longer I looked, the more obvious it became. It was a camera. Someone had been watching, recording maybe. For how long? I couldn't even guess. I didn't scream or run. I didn't take it down. I just sat there for a while, staring at it like if I looked long enough the answer would come. But nothing did. I needed to believe it was still part of the game. Some elaborate joke. But I knew it wasn't. Something about it felt colder. More deliberate. That camera hadn't been stuck up there for laughs. I should have told someone. My parents, the neighbors, anyone. But I didn't. I told myself I'd figure it out, that I'd wait and catch whoever was behind it. I don't know what I thought I'd do. Honestly, I don't think I was thinking at all. I just remember feeling this hollow kind of panic, the kind that creeps in and never fully leaves. It started as this soft sound. Tapping, like fingernails on glass. Slow, spaced out. Not frantic or loud, just persistent. I remember lying there stiff under the covers, staring up at the ceiling, counting the seconds between each tap. At first, I thought it was the wind, or maybe a tree branch brushing the window, but the rhythm was too steady, too intentional. Every few seconds, tap, tap, tap. My chest was tight, like something was sitting on it. I kept telling myself to move, to just get up and look, but I couldn't. My body felt like it didn't belong to me anymore. I laid there, frozen in the dark, while the tapping kept going. Eventually, it just became unbearable. I don't even remember making the decision, just that suddenly I was out of bed, pulling the curtain back like ripping off a bandage. I still wish I hadn't. He was just there, right outside my window. Not a silhouette or a blur, a man. An older guy, probably in his 50s or 60s, but it was hard to tell. His face was wrong, just off. Skin kind of sagging, like it didn't fit quite right. Teeth uneven and rotting. And his eyes, yellowed, like the kind of paper you'd find in a drawer 20 years after it was shoved there and forgotten. He didn't move, just looked at me, and when he realized I was looking back, he smiled. I don't think I even made a sound at first. I was too far gone for that. My knees almost gave out. I think I screamed. I must have, because eventually someone came. My parents. Footsteps down the hall, voices rising, but by the time they got there, the man was gone. Like he'd never been there at all. The cops showed up, not long after. Sirens and flashlights and people asking the same questions over and over. I remember standing out on the lawn barefoot, the grass wet and cold, just watching them move through the yard like they were going to uncover something huge. They combed through the hedges, searched the treehouse from top to bottom, even had flashlights cutting through the woods behind the property. But nothing. No signs of anyone. No footprints, no fingerprints, just the stack of notes and a few marshmallows still stuck to the outside of my window, like some sick joke no one could explain. I told them everything I could, about the notes, the camera, the man, but it all sounded so thin when I said it out loud, like pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit together. My parents didn't say much that night, but I could tell something had changed. My dad didn't go to work the next morning. My mom triple-checked the locks. It was the first time I saw them genuinely scared, not nervous or worried. Scared. They told me I wasn't allowed in the treehouse anymore, as if they thought I needed convincing. I never argued. I never went back. But even after all the panic faded and people stopped checking in, I never really let it go. Every time I visit now, holidays, birthdays, whatever, I still find myself staring out the upstairs window a little too long. I know he never came back. At least, I don't think he did. But the treehouse is still there. Same place, same height, same shadows underneath it. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if someone's still up there, waiting, watching, just like before. I still remember when we moved into that house. Even if the details have started to blur over the years. I must have been around 5 or 6. At that age, everything feels bigger than it really is. Stranger too. We had just left behind a cramped apartment in the city. I don't remember much about that place except the sound of traffic all the time and how close everything felt. The new neighborhood though, it was quiet. Too quiet, maybe. My parents were excited. I think they were mostly drawn to the space, the big lawn, the trees, the fact that it was ours. But it was the backyard that sealed it for them. Especially that old treehouse tucked up in a maple that looked like it had been there forever. It was nothing special, just some planks nailed together and a ladder that creaked even when no one was on it. But to my sister Mia and me, it was like a whole other world. We spent whole summers up there. We'd bring snacks, flashlights, books we pretended to read. We made up stories, turned it into castles, forts, space stations. I don't think there was a day that went by when we didn't climb up there at least once. And I know it sounds silly now, but back then it felt like that treehouse was alive somehow. Not in a haunted way, just, it had a presence, like it was part of the family. I didn't know then how different that place would feel years later, or how a spot that once felt so safe could twist into something I'd try to forget. At some point, I guess it just stopped mattering. The treehouse, I can't even tell you the exact moment that happened. It wasn't like I woke up one day and decided I was done with it. I think I just gradually stopped going out there. Maybe it's something that happens when you grow up. Things that once felt magical just fade. By the time I was around 11 or 12, I don't think I'd even looked at it in weeks. It had become part of the background. Just another shape in the yard. I had other things going on by then. I was getting into trouble more often. Nothing serious, but enough to make home feel like a pressure cooker. My grades were slipping. I was skipping assignments, mouthing off without even realizing it. I don't think I was trying to be difficult. Something just felt off inside me, and I didn't know what to do with it. My parents didn't either. That's when I started using the treehouse again. Not for fun, but more like retreat. I'd grab a pillow or a blanket, sometimes a book, and just disappear up there for a night. It wasn't about pretending anymore. I wasn't escaping into imagination. I was just trying to get away from everything else. When things got too loud inside, or when I felt like I was suffocating, I'd climb out into the dark and curl up in the corner of that creaky old structure, like it was the only place left that didn't ask anything of me. Looking back, I don't know if I was hiding from them, or from myself, maybe both. A few nights before everything happened, before things really changed, I remember lying in bed and feeling strange. Not scared exactly, just uneasy. It was late, and the house was quiet, but I couldn't settle. I was just lying there, staring at the ceiling, not even thinking about anything in particular. Then I heard it, something outside. It wasn't loud. If I hadn't already been awake, I probably wouldn't have noticed it all, but it was there. Just this soft, subtle sound, like footsteps, maybe, not on pavement, but across grass. A slow, shifting kind of movement, like someone trying not to be heard. My room faced the backyard, and for some reason my mind immediately went to the treehouse. But why would anyone be out there this late? I got up and pushed the blinds open just a crack. I remember how cold the window felt under my fingers. I stared into the backyard for a long time, letting my eyes adjust. Nothing. Just the outline of the treehouse barely visible in the dark and a breeze moving through the branches. Still, I stood there longer than I should have. Part of me knew it was probably just a raccoon, or maybe even the wind playing tricks with the leaves. That's what I kept telling myself. But something about the sound had felt off, too deliberate, like it wasn't random, like someone was choosing where to step. I didn't bring it up the next day. What would I even say? It didn't feel like enough to make a big deal out of. I just told myself it didn't matter, but I kept glancing toward the treehouse more often after that, just in case. That night, I didn't even plan on going to the treehouse. It just kind of happened. I'd gotten in trouble again. I honestly couldn't even tell you what it was about this time. Probably something from school. Some progress report or email from a teacher about my grades or how I wasn't turning stuff in. It was all starting to blur together by then. But I remember the feeling, the yelling, that sharp heat in my chest that made it hard to breathe. My parents looked so done with me, and I didn't know how to deal with any of it, so I just left. I didn't say anything. I grabbed my blanket, stuffed a few things into my backpack, and walked straight out the back door. I'd done it before, and they knew where I was going. I guess I figured they wouldn't bother following me this time either. It was easier than trying to explain anything I didn't even understand myself. I'd hidden my old Game Boy at the bottom of the bag. I wasn't supposed to have it grounded, obviously, but I brought it anyway. I remember sitting in the corner of the treehouse with my knees pulled up, just watching the screen glow blue in the dark. That was the only light around me. Just that little rectangle flickering as I clicked through levels. Everything else felt far away. The house, the shouting, like I'd separated myself from it all, even just for a little while. I wasn't planning on falling asleep. I didn't bring a pillow or anything, just the blanket, but I guess I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. My hands eventually went still. The screen dimmed, and I slipped into that weird half-sleep where you still feel like you're listening. And maybe I was. I didn't wake up because of a noise. It wasn't that kind of moment. It was quieter than that. Weirder. I just remember opening my eyes and knowing something wasn't right, like my body registered it before my brain caught up. My chest felt tight, like I'd been holding my breath in my sleep. My head was foggy, heavy in that way where you're not fully awake, but something inside you is already bracing for something. I sat up slowly, still tangled in the blanket. I remember how the air felt colder than when I'd first come out there. Everything was still. Not peaceful, just stilled. And then I heard it. A voice. It was low, rough, like someone trying to whisper but failing at it. There was this edge to it, like gravel, and it said my name. Not shouted, not even loud, just said it, like a question. Or maybe not. That's when everything inside me just locked up. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. For a second I told myself it was my dad, maybe coming out to bring me back inside. But it didn't sit right. The tone was off. Too calm, too quiet. And there was something about the way it said my name that made my stomach drop. Familiar but not. Then I heard the ladder. That old ladder always creaked. Normally it was annoying, but that night it sounded different. Each step was slow, like whoever was climbing it wasn't in a hurry, like they wanted me to hear it. I was frozen in place, eyes still adjusting, heart thudding in my throat, and then I saw it. Just a shape at the opening in the floor. A head, no features, no face. Just this dark outline standing still, half in, half out. Watching, or waiting, I don't know. It didn't say anything else. It didn't have to. I don't think I thought about it. I didn't plan or hesitate, I just moved. My body sort of reacted before my brain could put anything into words. I backed up fast, nearly tripping over my own blanket, crawling toward the little window on the side of the treehouse, like that opening was the only way out. I didn't take my eyes off that silhouette at first, not really, but it never moved, just stayed at the edge of the trapdoor like it had no reason to come in further. Or maybe it was waiting. The moment I got my back against the wall, I started yelling, for my dad mostly. My voice cracked almost immediately, but I didn't care. I just kept screaming. It wasn't even words after a while. Just noise. Desperate, ugly noise. I don't think I've ever screamed like that before or since. My throat burned from it. Then finally I saw light from the house. The hallway light flipped on first, then the bedroom window. I kept yelling. Then I heard footsteps. Not from above me. These were from the ground. Fast, heavy, someone running across the yard. My brain tried to register it as my dad. That's when I heard the ladder again. The creaking was faster this time, like someone scrambling down in a hurry. I didn't go to the trap door. I couldn't. I didn't want to see them leaving. I didn't want to see anything. By the time my parents burst out the back door, the yard was empty. Just grass and shadows, and that old tree swaying a little in the breeze. The treehouse felt like it was spinning. I was still up there, curled in the corner, shaking so hard I couldn't even think of climbing down. My legs wouldn't work. I felt stuck. Not just physically, like something inside me had frozen over. And I just kept thinking, what if I hadn't woken up? Looking back, maybe the strangest part of everything was how seriously my parents took it. They didn't roll their eyes or tell me I must have been dreaming. They didn't try to soften it, either. My dad had this look in his eyes. Sharp, focused, like he was trying to put the whole thing together in real time. He kept asking questions, like every little detail might be the missing piece. My mom just sat there next to me on the couch, her hands gripping mine tighter than I think she realized. She looked pale, not scared exactly, more like she was trying not to let it show. My uncle came by the next morning. He worked with the sheriff's office back then, so he offered to write something up. I didn't know what I was supposed to say. What do you tell a cop when all you really remember is a voice in the dark and a shape in the shadows? I did my best. I told him it was a man's voice, deep and kind of hoarse, and that he said my name like he already knew me. That was the part everyone kept circling back to. How would a stranger know my name? There weren't any answers, just guesses. My dad kept bringing up the guy across the street, said he got a weird vibe from him. Never explained why. I started watching that guy every time he stepped out to water his lawn or grab his mail. He'd wave sometimes, and I'd try to hear the voice again in my head, compare it to his. But I couldn't tell. Still can't. I never went back up to that treehouse. Not once. I didn't even look at it, really. It was like something had snapped that night, and whatever magic it once had was gone. Or maybe it had never been safe to begin with. I don't know.